Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. In a previous video, which is linked in the description, we talked about the 10 reasons I think the Navy doesn't like battleships. Here, we're going to talk about the 10 reasons the Navy does like battleships. So again, this is my opinion. This isn't really one from the Navy expressing it. It's not the museum's opinion. As you can guess, those of us who work at Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial have a certain affinity for battleships, so take that with a grain of salt. Some of these points will directly contradict or go against things I said in the other video. And for much of the battleship's career, there are multiple factions fighting for either bringing them back or getting rid of them. And so a lot of the things I'm saying are arguments that one side or the other used. And in that debate, not necessarily is everything right or always true. So in some instances, one might be right, and in some instances, the other might be. And that's why we see the Iowa-class battleships constantly brought back into service, taken out of service, brought back, taken out, because of this factional conflict. Also, I ordered these roughly in what I think. I'd love to hear your comments down below. What do you think are reasons not to bring these ships back? What do you think are reasons why the Navy loves them? Did I miss something? Should I have had it in different order? I'd love to hear from you. So in my number 10 spot, things that the Navy loves about battleships is they make really great yachts. So battleships have a large crew. That crew spends a lot of time polishing the deck, polishing brass, making these ships look good. Admirals love battleships. Battleships have a lot of room for flagstaffs, and it's a really great asset for a surface warfare admiral to be seen commanding from. In terms of actual command and control facilities, the battleships, particularly the Iowas in the 80s, have significantly less than modern built ships. However, a lot of the glory in the Navy goes to the carriers and the admirals who command them. So surface warfare admirals who want to get a leg up and compete for higher level 3 and 4 star jobs in the Navy need prestigious commands, and battleships fall under that. In fact, when the battleships were reactivated in the 80s, they had their flag spaces deleted intentionally so that admirals could not turn these into yachts and the Navy wasn't spending huge amounts of money on them. And yet, by the late 80s, the battleships had retrofitted admiral spaces on board. You can see some of those spaces on a tour of New Jersey. So clearly this is something that the admirals love. They wanted to command from these ships. And the admirals are the ones who are making a lot of the policy choices. So if the admirals love it, the Navy loves it. Number 9, battleships make fan-freaking-tastic recruitment tools. Recruitment videos with battleships or posters with battleships in them, I imagine, get people to sign up. If battleships had still been in the Navy, I would have joined the Navy. Instead, I had to go to a museum to work on battleships. One of the things my mother is scared about when it comes to the thought of sending a child to be in the military is it's not safe. And I imagine a lot of other mothers are like that. What platform is safer than a battleship? So battleships make great recruitment tools. In '82, when New Jersey is being recommissioned, the Navy puts out a call for volunteers. They need about 1,500 slots. 6,000 people respond. People re-enlist specifically so that they can have a chance at serving on a battleship. So battleships are just sexy. People want to serve on battleships. And then my next slot, they're safe for sailors. Sort of just talked about this, but battleships have so much more armor plating than other ships. They may not be invincible, but they're as close to invincible as we've ever developed with a warship. They can take hits, and the bulk of the crew will remain safe inside the armored part of the ship. Even the unarmored parts of the superstructure still feature heavier steel and more protection than a modern warship. The entire thing. So you're as safe on a battleship as you will be anywhere in the Navy, and dare I say, anywhere in the armed services. Cheap ammunition. We've already manufactured all the ammunition we'll ever shoot out of 16-inch guns. In the 80s, when the Iowas were reactivated, there were some 20,000 16-inch projectiles still in storage. So they're already paid for. It's free to fire them. Now, the Navy was looking at various times in the battleship service lives into making more modern types of munitions, either guided munitions or sabotted, smaller projectiles that have greater ranges, all sorts of different things. And we talk about a lot of this in our video on shells, which is linked in the description below. But the Navy is looking at all of these different types of ammunition that will cost money to develop and deploy these new weapons. Some of them you can just modify an existing 16-inch projectile. Some of them you've got to build a whole new projectile, and that projectile is only good for your battleships, the ones that actually have those guns. So there is a cost associated with that, and yet it's still less than firing cruise missiles. And I know a number of you have asked for actual numbers. What's it cost to make a 16-inch shell? What's it cost to make a cruise missile? I don't have that off the top of my head. I will look into that for a future video. Let us know in the comment section if that's something you're interested in. But much cheaper to fire a 16-inch projectile, even with the cost of manufacturing it a long time ago and then storing it for decades and decades. Next up, they have really long range. In terms of being actually propelled by fuel, they're not nuclear powered, so they don't have the long range of a carrier or a submarine. But in terms of being fueled, they have tremendous long range, 15,000 nautical miles at 15 knots. That means that over the course of a month, they can go a third of the way around the planet on a single tank of gas. An Iowa-class battleship can hold about 2.5 million gallons of fuel. And that means that they're not just good at extending their own range, but they can also refuel the battle group that's built around them and keep the other smaller ships going for longer. They are capable of underway replenishment, so they can stay out at sea for long periods of time. We know this because New Jersey cruised off the coast of Lebanon for close to a year in 1983. So she had originally been out near the Philippines, and then she gets called halfway across the planet and then has to stay on station. And she's basically able to stay on station being supplied for this whole period of time. It's the longest deployment of any ship since World War II. So battleships have a tremendous amount of range and staying power, not just talking about their armor being able to keep them in a fight longer, but they can just park right off of an enemy's coast and stay there until the conflict's over. Deploying a battleship saves you an aircraft carrier. This was part of President Reagan's whole idea in bringing the Iowas back. Though I've talked about this concept a couple times before. You really only have 1/3 of the warships you have, because one is going to be actively deployed, one will be down for maintenance, and one will be training and can't be deployed yet. So in the 80s, we had 15 carrier battle groups, and then Reagan brought back 3 battleship battle groups at the same time. So that's New Jersey, Missouri, and either Iowa or Wisconsin, because it doesn't seem like they each had they both shared the same battle group in the Atlantic. So functionally, you're adding another deployable battle group to your roster without having to wait for a whole new aircraft carrier to be built. So you can reactivate the battleship in a year. How long did it take to build Ford? 6 years, not counting all the development beforehand. And then how long has it been since she was built to get to the point where the elevators work so that she can actually be deployed? It takes a long time to develop a new class of ships, especially for the modern Navy. During World War II, we were pumping new classes out every year. That's just not how things work anymore. So bringing back the battleships gives you another deployable asset. And that's even more important today when we're down to, 10, 11 aircraft carriers. So functionally, we can only send a battle group to 3 places on the planet at once. So that gives an argument for having battleships that you can deploy. And battleships can do things carriers can't do. Carriers have a lot more range, but battleships can do some interesting things that carriers can't do, and we're going to come to that later on in the list. Actually, the next 3 things are all things that battleships can do that carriers can't. In my number 3 slot, you cannot shoot down a 16-inch shell. You may be able to with a close-in weapon system. You might be able to engage one of the 16-inch shells coming in, but these ships have a 9-gun broadside. So those shells are going to come in, and they're going to find the range eventually. And they leave a real big hole. The whole reason New Jersey was brought back during the Vietnam War was the North Vietnamese air defense system was shooting down aircraft left and right. And then the bridges that these aircraft are bombing can be relatively quickly rebuilt. So we're losing a ton of well-trained pilots. We're losing a ton of expensive aircraft. We're expending a ton of expensive guided munitions to hit these targets. And we're getting very little return on investment. And a lot of American soldiers are now being held by the enemy. Well, you can't take a 16-inch shell prisoner. You can't shoot it down. And we've got enough of them that we don't need any sort of guided munition. We can cheaply rain these down on a target until that target is no longer there. We can sail up the coast and bomb the next bridge. And then when the one that we were just shelling starts to get repaired, we just turn around and destroy it again. Piece of cake. You can't stop the 16-inch shell. Nobody has the armor to do it. It takes a ridiculous amount of reinforced concrete to be able to stop it. These things have great stopping power. In my number 2 slot, battleships are an all-weather weapon system. If it's raining too hard, you might have to ground your aircraft. The precision munitions might not work. How many of our infrared missiles and other things didn't work during the Vietnam War because of the heat or the humidity? So we end up going back to unguided, dumb munitions. Well, the battleships are entirely analog, and they can function in all weather. They can operate in weather that knocks other ships out of action. So during the typhoons that sink some of the destroyers escorting New Jersey, New Jersey just plows through with no problem. And some people have speculated that Halsey not taking the storm seriously, even though he's a former destroyerman himself, is because from his bridge high up on New Jersey, it doesn't seem that bad. The ship is rocking a little, but nothing too bad. So he can't see that the destroyers are wallowing in the storm. And certainly in a typhoon, you're probably not going to be able to accurately aim your 16-inch guns. An enemy fleet can't even deploy through a typhoon. They go back to port while New Jersey repositions herself for the next engagement and can seize the initiative. So battleships are an all-weather platform. And finally, my number 1 slot, the most important thing I believe about battleships is their power projection ability. Aircraft carriers are great. They can project power over hundreds of miles with their aircraft. But does that scare our enemies? All you see of this power projection is a small aircraft overhead, if anything at all. That might have great potential to do damage, but it doesn't scare me. Aircraft carriers are not going to go and operate in an enemy's coastal area where they can be seen. They don't have the armor to last in that sort of environment. Battleships do. And parking a battleship in an enemy's port is a great way to say, hey, we're watching you. Maybe you should stop what you're doing. And battleships have this aura of invincibility around them that what are you going to do about these ships? If a battleship comes and anchors in your port, What weapon system do you have that can take them out? You're now well within range of these battleships' guns. That ship is just sitting there, and you've got to take it. So battleships as diplomatic assets, as force projection assets, are completely peerless in the Navy. So, what do you love about battleships? Let us know in the comment section down below. Also, let us know what else you think should be on this list, how you would reorder it, and what even what you hate about battleships. I'd love to read your comments. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State and also from a number of private businesses and individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate the support you guys have given our channel and our museum. And if you'd like to continue supporting us, there is a link in the description below. Another way you can support the museum is by liking, sharing, and subscribing. That gets our name out there so more people know what we're doing. Thanks for watching.